You're listening to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Well, it's like when we audit the mod with Logic and give them the action items that they're going to use to lower their total cost of risk.
Tactical skills that will help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Technology is not an expense, it's an investment. Look at what Think HR has done for our clients and even our team. It's an amazing product, and I'm so thankful we have that.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Things are changing for us in 2021. Not all big business anymore. Now that we have CoverWallet on our team, it's amazing that we're going to be able to write small business profitably.
This is Power Producers Shop Talk. Production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are T-minus 13 days and counting until Key West.
Yeah.
I feel like the overwhelming majority of Shop Talks, considering we record in batches, I'm headed to Key West plus or minus 2 or 3 weeks every time.
That is fairly accurate.
Yeah, I just realized.
I think that means you're living right.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, I don't ever listen to the podcast. I do sometimes, but when I do, it's usually like if I've got a road trip, then I can plug it in because
right.
If and when I'm on the Peloton or the treadmill, I am not going to be motivated by listening to the two of us yakking, right? Like I know a lot of people who listen to podcasts working out, but I need like AC/DC, Motley Crue, terrible. Something like that to get me going. And Shop Talk is not it. But when I do listen, it's like, holy crap, we were heading to Key West again and again. Now I understand why so many people ask me, oh, you're going to be in Key West this weekend? I'm like, no, I go once a quarter. But the way that the recordings work, it sounds like I'm there all the time.
Exactly. I agree with you about the pods and not listening to them. I used to listen to a bunch when I was on the road more and driving around. I had several that I would listen to, and now that I'm like,
just basically clocking revenue from your house every day.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not just going to sit here, and listen to pods while I'm at my desk. I guess I could, but
thankfully,
I am a horrible multitasker.
Can I just say I'm really glad?
Impossible.
Can I just say I'm really glad we had Dan Abrahamson on the podcast from Cover Whale, because thanks to him, you hammered a nice trucking account in 10 minutes or less yesterday with Cover Whale.
It was very quick, when it's something that fits in their box, it's done easily and very quickly. Like I got that lead came in at 3:35. I called him at 3:42 or something like that, and then I had the quote done before 4 o'clock. Turned it around to him, and he's like, "Where do I sign?" So I mean, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, no, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a nice augmentation to the other markets that we have for trucking because they certainly don't take everything. How about Florida Trucking Insurance coming out of nowhere and probably processing close to 100 leads in the last 45 days?
Pretty wild, man.
Yeah. That's a testament to Mr. Chris Langell at Local Traffic Marketing, and I don't even mind giving him a plug for it. He doesn't pay me to say that. He pays me by giving me a return on investment on my spend with his company. My man called me up and said, we're really killing it in the trucking space right now. You want any trucking leads? And I'm like, we don't really have any trucking markets. Let me make a couple of calls. Pick up the phone, get a couple of trucking contracts as needed. Like literally, like over the phone, and then 2 hours later, the first lead drops already. Like, it was insane. Florida Trucking Insurance was nothing when I woke up one morning, and over the course of that first weekend, I've never seen anything like it. Over the course of the first weekend, that was on a Thursday. By Sunday night at 10 o'clock, we had three dozen leads drop.
Wow.
Now, we'll do a separate podcast on that. People, number one, they weren't free. We did have ad spend behind it, but when he said he could make it rain, it was a monsoon. And we can get into all, I think we do need to get into all the mechanics on that at a different time.
I think that's a good episode.
But today, we're going to upgrade. Like, we're not even going to talk about nonsensical insurance transactions. Who wants to talk about making 10, 15, 20,000 in commissions a pop when you can talk with Carey Wallace? There is no price that you can put on that. There is no price.
Oh my goodness.
And so we are going to spend the next 6 weeks of Shop Talk with Ms. Wallace diving into what she does. Like, this is really, to me, this is a series we should have done 2 years ago. But honestly, with the way the economy's going and everything is changing, and at some point money's going to start to dry up a little bit, I really think it's even more important today that agency principals or those aspiring to be, by the way, if you're a producer and you think this isn't for you, you're never going to be an agency principal, because you should be learning this when you're a producer, not when you own the agency. So if you don't understand what we're getting into, that means you need to listen to every single one of these episodes, because that's how you're going to be able to maximize your net worth at the end of the day. So we are going to talk about a bunch of different things regarding agency valuation, mergers and acquisitions, and all of that. But today, on this episode, we are going to do a quick run through on why you want to use EBITDA as opposed to revenue. So before we do that, Carey, just give them the quick 10,000-foot overview. You've been on a couple of times already, but we keep growing, occupational hazard, and we have people who might not know who you are. So why don't you just give them the 10,000-foot overview, and then we're going to dive into it.
Awesome. So I've been in the industry for about 14 years. And my background is finance. I've never sold a policy. I'm not licensed. I am not an insurance agent. I am a business person focused on helping independent agents maximize the value of their agency, grow their business, and truly protect the asset that they have. You guys protect your customers. I see myself as being a business partner to agents that want to transition, that want to grow, and that want to maximize the value of their asset and run it like a business. So that is what I do. I actually run a business called Agency Focus, and I only deal with independent insurance agencies. Those are my clients.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So we're warmed up. Now let's get into the meat of it. I think before we get into why you should use EBITDA over revenue, offline you said we should probably define EBITDA first, and I said we should probably define revenue first. So people, revenue, this is how I say it: premiums for show, revenues the dough, or premiums for vanity and revenues for sanity. You can't make payroll.
Do you have any other ones?
No, but I'll make them up while we're in Key West. You can't pay payroll with premium. Well, you can, but you're probably going to get in some trouble for it. But, revenue is commissionable revenue, and it drives me nuts. I don't know if it's because people come from a captive background or personal lines only, but when I see agencies talking about, oh, I have an X dollar premium agency, it's like, okay, great.
I just feel like because that number's obviously always bigger. So right. Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe it's like I don't know. I don't know what the reason for that is, but that would be my
that's why I say premiums for vanity, revenues for sanity.
Yeah, right.
People want to brag about it.
I would also say, right, David, the agency owners that I know that talk in revenue to their producers are actually building the future leaders of agencies. If you can think in revenue, and I understand carriers think in premium, but if you can be able to have in your mind revenue is really what drives the business, you're a whole lot better off if you can switch that mindset. So revenue is not a bad thing. It's not the way we communicate, and it's also not the way to communicate about the value of your agency as well, because I think there are a lot of agency owners that leave money on the table when they talk that way. There's a lot of, I heard so-and-so did this with their agency and it was a multiple of revenue, so therefore it applies to me. And you and I both know agencies are very different.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could be somebody who writes nothing but excess and surplus lines and tell you that I have a $20 million a year agency when I'm talking about premium, and my agency is really only $2 million in revenue. But if I have that same $20 million and it's all standard lines, my agency would be closer to $3 million. So it's actually could be 50% larger, but nobody would know because you're using the one constant that actually has variables attached to it to determine what the ultimate earnings of the agency is.
Exactly. And I'm with Kyle. Like, it sounds better. You know, if I'm on an intro call with an agent and I say, okay, tell me about your agency, I know immediately if they're talking about premium or revenue just by the way in which they're talking. An agency, and it's unfortunate. I think that we just need to retrain ourselves to speak in a common language that makes sense. I mean, here's the deal. If you're a scratch agency and you grew to anything, 1.2 million, be proud of it. I mean, you don't need to tell me your premium to be super over the moon that that's where you are. And that's actually, you know, my attitude whenever I talk to an agency. So I'm with you. This common language needs to be clarified, especially if you're going to start thinking about comparisons between agencies, which is dangerous, by the way.
Well, here's the other thing, and I think about this a lot. Where do people learn how to be an agency owner?
Nowhere.
Exactly, right? So
Nowhere.
We want to gripe and complain because our clients are buying insurance a certain way, yet we're the ones who taught them how to do that. There's no way for them to go learn how to buy insurance. If you're going to run an agency, the only way you have to learn it is either baptism by fire, or you've got a really good agency principal that wants you to understand the nuts and the bolts of the agency and how different things work together so that at some point they want to leave, you're in place to be able to perpetuate the agency. I think we do a really bad job as an industry in training people on how to run agencies. We have CSR courses. We have producer courses. It's where it ends. We have agency management. There's an agency management course in the National Alliance.
There is.
But I'm talking about like, and you know, I let me take that back for a second. Miles Merwin's doing a good job with this, with producers to principals. So he's trying to make that happen, and he's doing it in a very real and practical way by bringing people in to his agency and having them produce while they're learning with the intention that at some point they're going to leave to start their own agency. It's almost like he's got an agency incubator.
Yeah. And honestly, there are other programs out there, but sometimes they're just not transferable to being an independent insurance agency owner. Like, you can have entrepreneurial classes, you can have financial acumen classes, you can have all those things, but it breaks down at a point where the agency is different than the average, small business. There's no inventory on your balance sheet to manage. There's certain core functions that you have in financial classes that don't apply. I actually helped build a program in North Carolina that's literally targeted at looking at all parts of being an owner, and the financial one we just recreated completely in order to really do this like mini master class on what should you be thinking about as an owner. So there are people trying to tackle that. I would agree with you, but it's a void. There's no question about that.
And did you do that with Obby's group?
Of course I did.
I mean, like, seriously, people, there are a few better in the country than Obby Knight at championing independent agents, in my book. Like, and I'm not saying that for it to be a political move. Like, if you want to see how to cultivate independent agencies and make agents better, follow what Obby Knight in the Big I, North Carolina is doing, and it is a roadmap. Like, this guy impresses me every time I turn around.
Yeah, and he's super focused on getting people into our industry, training them to be service, literally having a different career. And then if you're an agency owner, training you on what you need to do. I mean, they have so many resources and are so focused on the core of what it means to be successful. They're a great partnership for me. There's no two ways around that. So, well, let's talk about EBITA then. We talked about revenue.
Let's talk about EBITA.
We talked about premium. Yeah, we talked about revenue. And here's the deal. EBITDA basically stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And honestly, that's where I stopped talking about EBITDA. EBITDA is literally, just think profit. EBITDA is the profit of your business.
But it's not as fun for agency principals to throw around profit, because we all know what that means. We don't sound nearly as sophisticated as we do when we say EBITDA. Even though every agent out there didn't know what the acronym stood for until you just said it.
Right. So, and why we're talking about those components to get to the true profitability of an agency is it's taking all the non-cash things out of your statement to get to what is the profit from running your business. Your revenue, less your operating expenses, add back all the non-cash things. If you have a loan and there's interest on it, if you're depreciating assets, all that stuff doesn't matter. We're going to add that back and talk about what your true profit is. That's the number that we focus on in order to talk about the value of your agency. It's not your top line revenue, it's the profit inside that agency. That's the number that gets multiplied by a factor in order to determine the value of your agency. And the reason we don't want to just use one number is the same reason if I go to the doctor and I'm sick, I don't want them to base their diagnosis on one number like my blood pressure. That's really not going to tell them everything about me. It's going to tell them one piece of information about my agent or about my health. Same thing with your revenue. Your top line revenue says something about you. That's fantastic, but it's not the whole story. And EBITDA, by using a methodology to value an agency based on EBITDA, it allows the person either contemplating buying the agency or the person running this agency to look at all of the health associated with that agency. That's the reason behind it. We're not just trying to complicate it for the heck of it. It's really a holistic approach to what is the health of your business and what's the value and what can you do. But the biggest thing is what can you do to increase it? If it's just your top line number, the only way to increase it is to do what, David?
Sell more.
Sell more.
Yeah, and I agree. You should sell more, but is that the only way to improve the business?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, the problem is that's the easiest way to improve the business, and sadly, unfortunately, I think for some of us, we have the mindset that if a problem comes, we can just sell our way out of it. And when you're of a certain size, that works. But at some point, you start getting bigger and your problems start getting bigger, and selling out of it is no longer an option.
No, of course not. It's, am I doing it efficiently? Am I scaling it? Do I have the right infrastructure? Now we're getting into the whole health of your business. It's not just, can I drive top line revenue? So, and I'm not trying to imply that the revenue and the growth of an agency isn't important in the value calculation. It's just one piece of that puzzle. So when you hear someone talking about the value of their agency is 2 times revenue, let's just say the most common thing that I hear, and now it'd probably be 2.25 times or 2.5 times or 3 times, whatever that is, I would tell you an agency that wants to be valued based on one number, which is their revenue, if they're of a certain size, they're not running their agency in a way that they would maximize an EBITDA valuation, which means if you're the buyer, I'd beware. Because if you're running a profitable agency, you want to be valued by EBITDA because your number will go up. That's a fact. So I would be cautious if someone's pushing you to give them 2 times revenue and they don't want you to look beyond their revenue line, go a different direction.
Well, I mean, truthfully, I hate to ask a question that seems painfully obvious to me. Like, why wouldn't you want to look past revenue regardless, right? Like,
you have to look past revenue.
Yeah.
You have to, right? Yeah. If you're going to make an investment, the revenue is one data point, but what's the predictability that that agency is going to continue to produce that way? What's the retention rate? Are they growing? Are they? I mean, there's so many things to ask. But
are they niche? Are they generalist? personal, commercial yeah, you're right. You could go for days in there.
Do they have one huge account?
Yeah.
Like, what's the risk there?
True.
Do they have 3 huge accounts and the rest are all small? And if they lose any one of those accounts, it's half the value.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot
Very
to go
good point.
past that, So just be aware when someone's talking as a multiple of revenue. I understand it's easy and it's common language in our industry. You have to think in EBITDA in order to make a good, sound business decision. And honestly, that's what I think I bring to the agents that I get to work with, is that I help them think about it from a business perspective, not necessarily just from the common language that exists. So,
nice.
Yeah. The other thing I would tell you is, I get asked a lot, so at what point, what size agency does it make sense to get a valuation and do EBITDA versus revenue and all of that? And it's a great question, because you either are buying an agency or you're buying a book. If you're buying a book, you should look at it the same way as EBITDA, but maybe not a full valuation. You still want to know the predictability of that book. You still want to know the makeup of the book. You still want to know the transferability of that book of business, the losses in that book. There's a lot to look at. So the same methodology that's used in evaluation using EBITDA is the same principle you should apply to a book analysis. So again, you might translate that to, okay, I know what I can pay for that book of business, but too often I still think we say, I still just want 2 times my book. Okay, but what's supporting the 2 times the book? You got to make sure it cash flows, and you got to make sure that is a sound book of business.
Makes sense.
If I had a mic, I'd drop it, but this one's mounted. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
I have literally zero to add.
No, exactly. So here's the deal, people. We're trying to keep these in easy to digest bites. I think we've hit EBITDA to death, and we're right on time. What are we talking about next, Carey? Tell them what they're going to hear next week.
We are talking about the benchmarks and how we're changing the benchmarks inside agencies.
I'm so glad I didn't ask that question when we were talking about EBITDA, because I was really, really close. So everybody, this is the best 6 episodes you could possibly listen to in the next 6 weeks. No offense to all my good friends who have podcasts. They're not putting money in your pocket like we are. Pay attention to the next 5 weeks after this one of Shop Talk. We're going to be back to talk about benchmarks next week. Everybody have a great weekend. See ya.
You've been listening to Power Producers Shop Talk. You can follow us at the Power Producers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our commercial insurance training course at killingcommercial.com or visit Amazon to pick up a copy of our international best-selling book, The Extra 2 Minutes.